lesson 10. This is the final lesson of term 2, so while I'm making it through all those lessons up to this point, we're going to keep this lesson a little bit easy, and we're going to just basically learn some theory and try and tie in and understand what we've done throughout the year so far. Alright, so let's get straight to it. I have this theory. Right, in the next few videos we're going to take a look at some music theory. We have up until this point, from the first term and the second term, we've been looking at a little bit of theory without really realizing it. We've been slowly learning theory in a very subtle manner. Now what we're going to do in the next few videos is we're going to look at that and find out exactly what we've been doing. It's from a more musical stand and point of view. So this comes more from learning to read music and that sort of part. So we haven't been learning to read music, we've been doing it sort of through tabs and through chords, which is great, but now we're going to sort of bring in another element. All that a music theory really is people started playing these instruments and started creating these instruments, and someone would play something or do something that was really good, and they documented that. So throughout time, as music has progressed, they've documented what they've done, and what you find is, if you do that extensively, there's certain sort of structures and frames and ideas that fit together nicely and fit within a good frame, and it's all about frequency and counting and timing. So like we did right in the beginning of the year, we learned about our counting, 4 counts and all that sort of stuff, and how to slow that down, how to speed that up. So these things are not sort of just, hey, do this and it sounds good. It's part of a very strict theory and a very strict structure. So in the next few videos, we're going to take a look at some of that stuff, and we're going to do it in a casual manner. So watch each video, sort of take it all in, and you'll find that a lot of the stuff that I discuss in the next videos makes sense because we've done it already. And you're going to add this to your sort of general information and knowledge on playing the guitar. And as the year progresses and we go to term 3 and 4, you'll notice we start incorporating this and we start understanding it a little bit more clearly. Often when people play the guitar, they go, I can play all this stuff, I can do all this stuff, but I don't understand why and how. So this is going to help tie that in a little bit, and as you go through further into the year, it'll make a lot more sense, and you'll be playing the guitar with a lot of knowledge, so you'll understand exactly why you're moving from this chord to this chord, why you're playing this scale, and why you're doing all of these things. Alright, and that is basically, I have this theory. Time and counting. Alright, so this is the section that we deal with when it comes to those 4 counts, the counting off the clock that we've done all the way through this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a 4e and a... Alright, so first thing, let's have a look at this diagram. And we'll see that right on the top of the diagram we've got the 1e and a, then it's sort of broken down to another column, 2e and a, next column 3e and a, and 4e and a in the last column. And then we have some funny looking little golf sticks. That's what it looks like. Those little symbols. Now, if you've stumbled across music notation, you will recognize those. If you haven't, that's exactly what they are. They're music notation. In music, you learn to read off a staff. We're not going to get too deep into this, but basically in music, you learn to read off a staff, and it gets sort of scattered with little dots. And some of them are colored in, some of them aren't. And it's sort of spread out, and it almost looks like random sort of scribbles on a piece of paper. That's music. The idea is those little dots represent the different notes on your guitar, so some of them might be there. Each little dot shows you basically, for a guitar, a different fret. Now, those dots are telling you sort of like, this is an F, and this is a G note, and this is an A note, so that you can play it on any instrument. And you get different sort of clefs, so you get a treble clef and a bass clef and all sorts of clefs, and that'll tell you what sort of frequency you're playing. So if you're playing on the low end of the piano or high end of the piano, you get different clefs for that. But that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in those little dots. Those little dots tell us, first of all, where the note goes, which we're not learning right now. We'll learn that later in the year. But more importantly for us is the time length and the counting of these dots. Now, if you have a look at the first one and you look at 1E and 2E and 3 and 4 and you've got all your notes up there, or your timing, you'll have a look at the first note. It looks like a 0. And that 0 is called a semibreve. It is a whole note. You'll have this in the notes, so you can refer to your notes as well. You can over time you'll remember that it's a whole note, and it lasts for 4 counts. So, for example, when we're playing a chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a semibreve. There'll be lots of them. There'll be all of these notes. There'll be little dots on your music, and it'll be a little 0, and that's it. So a 0 semibreve that lasts for 4 counts. All right. On to the next one. We've got a little golf stick looking thing with a dot next to it. We're going to skip that one right now. We'll come back to that and I'll explain why. So we go on to the next one and we see just a little golf stick. It's see-through. It's a little see-through golf stick. That's what it looks like. That is your half note, minim. That minim is 2 counts. So we've taken the 0 and we've put a little stick on it. And that is telling us we're playing a minim, and that is a half note. It's 2 counts. So if you look at it, right on the top, you've got your whole note. That's 4 counts. If you just put a little stick up on it, on that sort of round 0, you're now playing a half note. So 2 half notes, 2 counts and 2 counts, that equals 4. So you can see how they line up in that diagram. You've got the whole note at the top, we're skipping the second one, and then we've got the half note and half note. So 2 and 2 equals 4. Alright, then we go back up one to that half note. It's the little 0 with the stick on it, and there's a dot next to it. That's a dotted half note. What that little dot means is it means take the value of what's in front of it, which is the half note, the minim, it's 2 counts. They're saying halve it, so it goes down to 1 count. So you've got 2 counts for your half note, then it's asking you to halve it, so it's 1, then you add them together. So you've got 2. You've got your half note, which is the little golf stick type thing, that's 2 counts, and the dot means halve it and add it together. So 2 halved is 1, and then you add them together 3. So a dotted half note is 3 counts. So now if we look at that diagram again, you've got the 4 counts for your whole note. You've then got a dotted half note, which is 3 counts, and you can see that line running across, indicating it's taking up 3 counts. And then we go on to the next one, which is your half note, and you get 2 counts and 2 counts, and it adds up to 4. Alright, the next one, you've got the same sort of shape, the little line with the circle, but it's coloured in. Alright, and that is a quarter note, a crotchet. This is 1 count. So 4 of them add up to our 4 counts. So 1 crotchet, 2, 3, 4. You need 4 crotchets to make a whole note. Right, let's go back to the top. You've got your whole note, and that is taking up 4 counts. You've then got your dotted half note, which takes up 3. You've then got your half note, your minim, which takes up 2 counts and 2 counts. And then onto the last one, your quarter note, your crotchet, 1, 1, 1, 1. So all of those add up to 4. And we have been playing those when we go 1 count. So for example, with our strumming, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're playing those all quarter notes. They're all crotchets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we decide to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we let 3 and 4 ring. So we play 3, we let it ring. That's 2 counts. So if you consult your diagram, you're going to see that 2 counts is a half note. So you're playing a crotchet, and a minim. Quarter note, half note. And together, those add up to 4. And you've got your bar again. Don't worry about the dotted note for now. It doesn't add up to 4. You could put a crotchet next to it, and you could have your dotted half note for 3 counts. And you could have a crotchet, and that would equal 4. So you'd be able to go 1, 2, 3. That's your dotted half note, and you play a crotchet for 1. So you've got 3 and 1, and that will equal 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Etc., etc., etc. And that gives you sort of different feel and different time. Alright, so now you can stop the video if you like, and you can go over that, and you can just practice those first 4. And you just slowly learn and watch and focus on that diagram, because it's very visual and it shows you how they all add up and they umbrella out underneath each other and how each note gets split up. You can start with your 4 counts and you're slowly breaking it down. Alright, once you've done that and you're comfortable with that, rejoin the video. We're going to take a look at 2 more. Alright, so the next part, 1 and. If you look at the top, you've got your 1 and. The second part is 1, it's in line with the 1. And then the next part, it's in line with the and they're joined together. You can see they're sort of joined together. These are 8th notes. You're taking a crotchet, you're splitting it in half, and your crotchet is your 1 count, your quarter note. You take it and you split it in half, and you've got 2 out of that. So it's like the half a second. It's the when we're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we've dealt with that a lot over the year so far. These are 8th notes. So you'll notice they've got their sort of little ball and their stick, the coloured in golf stick, and it goes with a line across, and there's another one. Those are 8th notes. You count them and you play them. 1 and. Then in the next column, 2 and. Next column, 3 and. Next column, 4 and. So if you're looking right from the top, you've got your whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you've got your dotted half note. 1, 2, 3. And then you would play something. And then you've got your half notes, your minims. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then your crotchet, your quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 8th note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and those all played. Alright, and on to the last one that we're going to deal with. There is one more after this, but it's not for this year. The 32 notes. That is, it's pretty fast, it's pretty difficult to count for at this point, so we're not going to even bother. The 16th note is the last one we look at. And if you look at the diagram, you'll see it all fits in its column like the rest of them, and it's splitting them up. You've got now 4 little golf sticks in each column, and they're all joined together as well. Now they're not joined together with a line, they're joined together with 2 lines. So it says we are now playing 4 notes for the price of 1 count. So you've got your 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. That is a 16th note. We do play a bit of that with our in-between chord changes that we've learned throughout the year. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. That and are 2 little 16th notes that we play to lead into the next bar or the next chord, for example. So that is as fast as we're going to go for now. We're not going to break it down and go any faster. We're going to look at those sort of main 6. So what you need to do, before we do that actually, let's go through the whole list. We've got the whole note, your semi-reeve. 1, 2, 3, 4. It rings for 4 counts. Dotted half note. It's the see-through golf stick with a dot. We're going 1, 2, 3, and we can actually just count 4 out. Then the next one, the half note, the minim, that is going to go 1, 2, then you play again, 1, 2, you've got your 2 and 2 equals 4. Then the crotchet, the quarter note, single golf sticks that are coloured in. Alright, so you got your little golf stick looking thing, it's coloured in, that's a crotchet, and that is played 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are 4 counts there, 1 count each. Next part, your 8th note, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the last one, our 16th, 1 E and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and. Alright, so stop the video, go through all of those nice and slow, and just sort of get used to it. You don't have to memorize it too much, just bear that in mind, and we're going to be looking at some more of that throughout the year. Alright, and that is basically time and counting. Rests. In music, even your silences must be counted. You can play something, then you can pause your guitar, and you can count out something, and then you carry on with your counting. Your counting starts and it doesn't stop. So if you're not playing something during a piece of music or a song or something, that silence that you are sort of playing, as it were, it must be counted. So for example, before we get onto that, if I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then at some point I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I literally have silence. I'm not letting it ring out, I'm not doing anything, I'm not playing. But I'm still sort of playing the first 2 counts of every bar, for example. Then those are called rests, and those must be counted out too. So let's take a look at the diagram, and we've got our rests sort of hashed out. And the first one is the little 0, that is a whole note. And next to it you see sort of upside down hat. It's a little line with a little square underneath joined to it. That is a rest. That is a whole note rest. So let's look at that. If we are to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and we were to carry on. That rest where we didn't play anything, it's measured, and that's first measurement for your whole note, your 4 counts, is this diagram that you see. Alright, so the next rest, we're going to go through them quickly. The next rest, the half note rest. So that is for 2 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're resting for, say, 2 counts. Or you could be doing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter where your rests are. If you're resting for 2 counts, then you're playing a half note rest. And that looks identical to the first one, except it's the other way around. It looks like more like a normal hat now, facing upwards. You've got your line, and then a little square on top of that, a little rectangle actually on top of that. And that is your half note rest. Alright, and your quarter note rest, so if you're resting for 1 count, it looks like the following little squiggle. It basically looks like that. That is your quarter note rest. It's just a funny little squiggle, and you might see them if we go through those at some point in the term. And I'll go through it and I'll explain that it's that rest. It's a little squiggle, so that's your quarter note rest. For example, if I'm playing 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm resting on, say, alternate ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's sort of many ways where you can put them and all that sort of stuff. If you're resting for a count, a quarter note rest, then that is what the rest time looks like. And then the last 2, which we don't sort of do for a long time, is the 8th note rest. And that looks like a little line with a sort of little branch out of it. And very quickly on to the next, the 16th note rest. Looks identical, there's just 2 little branches that come off of it. So it's a little stick with like a little leaf. that is the sign for rest on those. Those are a lot trickier, and we're certainly not going to be playing them very early on in this term. We'll maybe play that towards the end of the year, and we'll be able to do that. Alright, so these rests, you just have a look at them, stop the video, go over them, and look at your notes and just learn those rest signs. I will be using them in our tabs that we go through throughout the year, which I'll explain in the tab section. Alright, so this is basically the concept that even your silence, you need to count out. So that if I don't have to play anything, and the rest of the band, for example, is playing something, I must count out my rest, and I must count out those bars so that I know where to come back in and be able to play along. So that you don't get lost in the music and you don't get caught and you don't know where you are. So you want to be able to count and know exactly where you are, even if you're not playing. Alright, and that is basically rests. Ties. Right, in music we get these things called ties. Basically what they do is they take one note, another note, and they tie them together. So creating a new note sort of count value, as it were. So if we took a crotchet and we took another crotchet, and the crotchets are the single counts, the one count, and we join them together, and it's usually, if you look at the diagram, there's a little line that sort of indicates these two notes are getting joined together. What this means is you take the one and you add them together, 2. You play the first note, so for example if it's an open thick string, and you're playing it for 1, so 1, 2. Now instead of playing that next note that's tied together, we let it ring into that note and we sort of let it ring out. So if you've got a crotchet, 1, and it's tied together with another crotchet, you then are getting your half count. It is now 2 counts, 1, 2, or 1, 1. The reason we do this and the reason we don't just put a sort of half note and just make it 2 is because we've got to bear in mind our bars. Our bars are 4 counts, very strict. They split up into those 4 counts. But what happens is, for example, say you're playing 4 crotchets. 1, 2, 3, 4. But that 4th one, you actually want it to ring over and be 2 counts. You can't just go putting a 2 count in there because now you have 5 counts in your bar and you can't have that. So you tie it into your next bar of 4. So you've got your 4 counts and your 4 counts in your bars. You're tying it across so that you can still get that ring out of 2 counts that you want to hear musically and sort of written down, and in the structure of music it works. So it usually ties from one bar to another and it joins those notes together without ruining your counting, so that you can keep counting, especially whilst other instruments are playing things and they're not sort of tying a note, they're not counting longer, they're playing more. If a violin's playing, or a bass guitar, or a drummer, or whatever the thing is, if they're playing, they need to keep playing. But if you need to ring out a little bit and you sort of dragging over into the next bar, you need to be able to do that musically. So those tied notes are you taking a note from this bar into the next bar and then joining them together so that you can play a longer note. So if you look at the diagram, you'll see 4 crotchets, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the 4th one is tying over into the next bar, and then you've got some more crotchets. So there's 4 crotchets in each bar and a tie joining the last crotchet and the first crotchet of the next bar. And so what we're going to play and what it's going to sound like and look like is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're not playing that first count of the next bar, it's tied from the last bar. You're stealing a bit of time and you're joining them together so that everything adds up and that you get all your counts, but you get to play exactly what you want to play. Alright, and there's many different ways to tie notes, and there's different timing and different counting. But basically, when you're tying a note together, you're joining the two sort of values and you're playing it once, and you can allow it to sort of morph and stretch and play within your bars. So if, for example, you have a half note tied with a single note, a crotchet, a quarter note, then you're getting a 2 plus a 1, so it's 3 counts. Make sure you play those 3 counts. And then if you're into the next bar and that first count has been sort of tied, then you don't count it anymore. You count it in your head, and then you're playing the next count. Alright, so one more look at that first example. Your 4 and your 4 crotchets in each bar, tied together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're not playing that first count in that second bar, it's still being tied over. Alright, and that is basically ties. Time signatures. Alright, this is where it can get a little bit hairy. So we need to do this very slowly and carefully, and we're not going to deal with it too extensively because we don't quite have that sort of music theory backing for it. So there's two things I want to bring across, and I've explained them in sort of previous lessons in the term when it came to particular songs. It's the little numbers 4 over 4 at the beginning of your song or your bar, or 3 over 4, 3 over 2. There's different little time signatures. And these are little indications of how your music's going to be played musically. For example, the 4 over 4, we have a look at it. We've done that before. And what I basically explained was there's 4 counts in a bar, that 4 on the top. Now, the 4 on the top is telling us there are 4 counts in the bar, and then that underneath part, that bottom 4, is telling us the bar and the song is sort of structured and consists of quarter notes. So those little golf sticks colored in that have 1 count. It means that the piece of music or the song is structured with those notes and played sort of with that timing. Alright, we're not going to go any deeper into that either. Next part we look at 3 over 4. It's telling us we're playing 3 notes, and it's constructed and it's created using, again, those quarter notes, those single counts. So for each bar, if we've got 4 over 4, we look at it very basically, 4 crotchets played. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like your 4 seconds on your clock. They're counted and they're played in this sort of manner. It does branch off, and you can get a little bit more in depth with that. And again, we're not going into that yet. Very basics. 3 over 4, 3 counts built up of that crotchet structure. 1, 2, 3. Next bar. 1, 2, 3. Nice and simple, easy to understand, simple basic theory. Now, it gets a lot more complicated, and it gets 9 over this and 3 over this, and it gets big and it gets scary, and there's often some very strange and not so common time signatures, which we're not going to worry about now. But if you were presented with a 3 over 2, you would know there's 3 counts, and you know that the structure is half note. Okay? And often that is going to mean you're going to be playing those counts, those above notes, as half notes. So instead of them actually being, counted as 1, 2, 3 at a sort of pace like that, you'd often be counting them 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And it kind of morphs what your notes look like. When your note did look like a crotchet, it's going to change and it's going to be played longer. Gets a little bit tricky, gets a little bit confusing. So all you need to bear in mind is that the 3 on the top is telling you there's 3 counts. So make sure you're counting out 3. And the underneath count and the underneath number is telling you what kind of notes you're playing. Alright, so that's the basics of time signatures. I'm not going to go into any more depth. We've already learnt it, we know what it is, and there's not much more to it for now. It's basically you've got your top count, that's how many counts are in the bar, and underneath that number is telling you what they consist of and what they're going to look like musically. Alright, so for time signatures, Keep it nice and simple, keep it nice and basic. Look at the top, and if you see a 4 over 4, you know that you're just counting nice and simply. 3 over 4, there's 3 counts in the bar. Those are the 2 that we're going to focus on. Later on in the year, when we take a look at some different types of time signatures, I'll then go through that. Alright, and that's basically time signatures. Arpeggios. Right, we've played arpeggios before, so we can actually do those. We just need to understand what they are now. An arpeggio is when you hold a chord, for example, and you play each note of that chord one after another. Instead of strumming it, an arpeggio is to pick through those notes at a sort of constant time. So, for example, that would be an arpeggio. You can go up, you can ascend in an arpeggio. So they're going up in your notes, or you can descend. And then you can mix them together. You can go up, you can ascend and descend. Right, and you'll notice House of the Rising Sun. We did that. So that is an arpeggio. That's basically all there is to it. You're kind of holding a chord and you're picking one note after another and you're going through like that. That is basically an arpeggio. Tabs. Alright, so we know exactly what a tab is and we've been playing them. When we play tabs, the way I've been doing it is I'm teaching you a tab and I'm kind of throwing in some musical sort of notation, like a slide. You get the little line that goes up, or a hammer-on, you get the little loop that goes over the 2 notes and tells you to hammer on, etc., etc. Those aren't strict tab notes, those are more music. So we've kind of been learning a little bit of music notation as well, where we can learn the tab and then we get that sort of musical, that sort of learn to read music aspect as well. A lot of the tabs that you'll find on the internet, and when we go over how to learn off the internet in the next term, you'll find that they don't do that. They just use a little letter or something. So for us a bend, and we get that little arch up. On a tab off the internet, you're most probably going to find it goes, say, 3B, 5, 3, bend to 5. So there's sort of notes for your tab that you usually get at the bottom of your tab when you sort of download it and try and learn to play it. And those are teaching you what to do. So you'll see a little B for a bend or a P for a pull off. And they'll give you and they'll list all of those things for you. So you'll be able to read that tab and you'll be able to see, instead of not only playing the notes, there's little letters and indications and things like that. Those are your sort of notes on the tab. So we get onto that as well, and we'll go through that in the next term. At the same time, I also want to show us, what a legato, the sort of hammer-on, looks like musically. So we've done a bit of a sort of a mix, which I think is nice and healthy. But at the same time, when we sort of take a look at downloading tabs and learning to play off the internet and all that in the next term, then we'll go over those sort of things. So for now, just bear in mind that our tabs that we're learning are a bit of a hybrid. Nothing wrong with that, it's probably a little bit better. So in the next term, we're going to be looking at that a little bit further. And that is basically tabs. Why theory? Why do we need to learn theory? Why do we need to learn note symbols for music staff and music score if we're not even learning to read music. Why do we need to know all of these things? To put it very simply, we need to sort of understand the concept of music to be able to play better, for one, and also to be able to figure stuff out on our own. If we know nothing about music theory and we hear someone play a song, or we look at a tab and we try and figure it out, we get very lost very quickly. However, if you've learned some music theory and you know all about crotchets and you know all about rests and voices and ties and all these things, and if we've learned those and then we look at a tab or something, or if someone's just playing, we can count them out and we can think out the music part of it and figure it out in our head before we even play it. And if you've learned about sort of scales and arpeggios and all these things, you'll be able to understand what's going on much quicker and much better, and be able to learn quicker and better. So basically it's very much an advantage to be able to hear when someone's playing this, for example. We already know in our head what they're doing is they're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 1, 2, etc. We've understood about count and timing, and then we've learnt about sort of the 16th notes we need to play the and. So we know that it's probably a 4/4. They're playing 4 counts in the bar, simple sort of crotchet stuff, your quarter note. And then you know that in between the chord change whilst they're moving, they're playing 2 little 16ths that they've incorporated into that last count. And you get a better idea, so that if you didn't know any music notes and you knew nothing about counting and timing, you're just going to sort of blindly follow along. And as we progress and as we get through the year, we learn a lot more complicated stuff. So without that sort of musical backing, we're going to feel hopelessly lost. So if someone were to play something very simple right now, with the music theory that you know, that knowledge of that sort of structure, you can actually see that, and you can think to yourself, I know exactly what's going on here. I can count out how many chords there are in a bar. I know what the bar is made up. I know what they're doing for that chord change. It's just a great, great advantage for you, especially if you're learning off an app, you're watching videos. At some point, you're going to want to learn something that might not be in our year's course, and you're going to go onto the internet and you're going to find it. If you've been equipped with some music theory and you listen to the song and then you read the tab, an accurate tab, which I'll show you how to find, you'll be able to do it all on your own, and you won't need help, which is the goal. We want to get you self-sufficient, playing on your own, being able to do whatever you want, learn different styles, different genres, pick up new techniques, watch some videos online, and be able to do all of these things. And it's very important that we have a little bit of an understanding, so that we're not sort of walking in the dark. We know what's going on. And that is basically why theory. What now? Alright, so we get to have a look back at where we stand and what we've done. And basically, we've started from complete scratch, and we've started learning these various sort of aspects of playing the guitar, these ideas, and now even some theory, and we sort of piecing together very slowly a lot of the basics, how to do some picking, how to do some strumming, we did some scales, and we've learned a sort of very broad basic idea of playing the guitar. And we've learned some songs along the way, and we've slowly brought our technical level up, and we basically continue to do this, and we keep going at a sort of a further rate until we are where we want to be. So if we look back at sort of where we started, it's a good time to do that. Go back to the very first lesson and watch us painfully going through learning these chords. And then you get a good idea, have I actually learned anything? Because when it comes to playing a musical instrument, and when you sort of learn something, and when you're going through with something, you don't really get to notice any difference, because you're sort of gradually climbing a hill, as it were. So take a look back. Go back to the first sort of thing, the first practice song we did even, and just you'll get an idea. You know, I've learned a whole bunch of stuff and I've improved, my technical level's gone up and all that kind of stuff. So great opportunity to do that. Where we stand, we've learned a whole bunch of stuff and we're going to continue learning more. We're going to build on what we've learned and start bringing in different ideas and more concepts. What we have been doing for our songs is we're doing something called solo guitar playing. As I've said previously in the videos, doesn't mean we're playing a guitar solo, which we get onto in the next term. We learn about scales and soloing and that sort of stuff. But what it means is we're playing the guitar on our own. So I've kind of given you variations of all these songs, Snow Patrol and Zombie and all the sort of riffs and all the stuff we've learned in the past. I've given you variations. It's so that it is suitable for your playing. Now, here's the kicker. When you start experimenting and playing with other people, they will have learned their particular way and in their particular fashion. You're not going to particularly meet, all right, because you've learned your variation. So you want to play Snow Patrol with someone else on the guitar or someone on bass guitar, it doesn't meet. And that's where the next term comes in. We learn how you need to sort of have the same music, the same variation to be able to play together. And you need to be able to arrange and say, you know what, we both don't particularly like playing this part of the song, let's just skip it out. We do whatever we want to do, which is also a great thing to be able to do. Pick and choose, do what you want. That's the sort of point of playing this guitar, learning all this stuff. So we'll get to a point where we'll play the songs exactly how they are and all that kind of stuff and learn how to sort of make a variation, as it were, with someone else that you're playing together. All right, and we're also going to, next term, maybe the following term, I think we'll try it next term with one. We're going to start playing along with backing tracks. And we're going to start getting, you know, a bit of drum and bass maybe and play some guitar. That's going to be a sort of exercise on how to play in time. Make sure you got all your counts, make sure you know your music theory so that you can play along to something and sort of feel like you're understanding music, you're understanding chords and you're getting that result as well. Alright, and then we're going to introduce the sort of repertoire book, which is basically just going to be all your tabs in the toolbox kind of clumped together, and you get to sort of have a look at all your songs because you start forgetting you can play these things and that. So we'll put it together in a nice sort of format. What we're also going to do next term is we're going to learn a whole bunch of new songs, simple songs. Okay, so we're going to learn that, but I'm not going to spoon feed you that. I'm going to show you how to go onto the internet, and which you should know by now, and be able to sort of find songs that you want to play and find accurate tabs that aren't messy, because anyone can submit a tab onto the internet. So a lot of the guys, they either get it wrong or they're doing it their own way, and it might not be the way you want to do it. So we'll go on, we'll figure out, you know, how do you find a reasonable tab that isn't completely wrong, and how do you do all of that stuff and learn on your own. So we deal with that also again in the next term. All right, so that is basically what now? And there we have it. That was lesson 10 of the second term. In this term we looked at playing a lot of songs, learning what riffs are, learning some sort of hammer-ons, pull-offs or ornamentation, and we learned a fair amount, and we've got a lot to play now. So this term you're taking all those pieces of music and those songs out and practicing them, and you're getting really good at them. And what we're going to be looking at in the next term is we're going to do very much the same. We're just going to kind of keep it going until we can play a lot of songs, we get more comfortable, we start playing with a little bit more sort of flavor and all that sort of stuff, and we get a lot better at playing the guitar. So next term is going to be very much the same as this term. So practice this term, practice all the songs that we've learned over and over and over and get it ingrained into you. And once you're sort of happy and you're in a good place, take a break. Take a break before going on to term 3. Literally, don't touch your guitar for 2 or 3 weeks. It's very important that you do this. It clears your mind. Any bad habits that you might be starting to form, it forgets all about them, and you can start up again and you can take it further. So thanks very much for joining us on the second term, and we look forward to seeing you in the third term. So if you have any questions, queries or comments, you can find us on Facebook and you do that. Alright, and that is the second term.